The true and unblinking, stared intensely at Jacob with an unsettling, predatory curiosity. Fear exploded through Jacob's chest. He forced himself to move, taking quick, unsteady steps away, hoping the figures would lose interest, but he couldn't resist looking back one more time. The smiling man was moving again. Strangely, unnaturally. Half dancing, half walking, jerking his limbs at odd angles like a marionette on tangled strings. Beside him, his companion, still motionless, merely watched. Even at this distance, Jacob felt the weight of their gazes pressing upon him. His pace quickened, but when he glanced behind again, the blood froze solid in his veins. The smiling man was closer, rapidly closing the distance, still moving in that sickening, twisted dance. His companion trailed slowly, methodically behind, maintaining perfect silence. Adrenaline surged, and Jacob broke into a sprint, heart pounding wildly, footsteps echoing loudly. His mind raced. Who were they? Why were they following him? As he ran, the distorted laughter echoed behind him. High-pitched, unnatural, filled with an unspeakable joy that seemed entirely out of place in the quiet night. He didn't dare glance back again. He already knew the smiling man was closing in. Jacob rounded a corner sharply, nearly stumbling in panic. He darted into an alleyway, hiding behind a dumpster, breath catching painfully in his throat. Listening, praying silently, he heard the strange footsteps slow to a stop at the alley's entrance. Silence. Then, horribly, a low, sing-song voice drifted through the darkness. "I see you there," the voice cooed, dripping with sickening sweetness. "You can hide, but it won't help." Jacob pressed against the cold metal of the dumpster, tears of panic burning his eyes. He held his breath, listening intently. Seconds stretched into minutes, until, finally, the footsteps slowly retreated. But he didn't dare move. He remained hidden, trembling uncontrollably, waiting until dawn cracked pale across the sky. Returning home, Jacob tried to convince himself it had been a twisted prank. But each night afterward, sleep became impossible. Shadows whispered to him, Smiles waited in every darkened window, every shadowy alleyway. The smiling man had burrowed deep into his mind. Desperate for answers, he searched online. And what he discovered made his blood run cold. He found forums filled with similar encounters, countless accounts describing the same eerie, smiling figure. It seemed impossible, yet the stories matched perfectly. The impossible smile, the disturbing movements, the terrifying, predatory chase. Jacob dove deeper, uncovering a disturbing urban legend, the Smiling Man, born from a single, unsettling online story that had gone viral years before. But how could a fictional tale be standing before him, flesh and blood, just nights earlier? Soon, paranoia consumed him. Shadows became threats. Laughter in public felt sinister, twisted. Friends dismissed him as paranoid. Neighbors whispered about his anxious behavior. He was spiraling, trapped in a nightmare with no escape. Weeks passed. Just as Jacob convinced himself he'd imagined everything, he woke one night to a soft, chilling tap at his apartment window. Rigid with terror, he slowly turned his head toward the glass. The smiling man stood there, pressed close against the window pane, mouth stretched obscenely wide, eyes bulging, unblinking. His grotesque grin was illuminated by moonlight, revealing rows of disturbingly perfect teeth. Jacob scrambled away, crashing onto the floor. His heart pounded so hard he thought it might burst. "Leave me alone!" he shouted desperately. The smiling man tilted his head slightly, still grinning. Then he raised one slender finger and pressed it gently to his lips, signaling silence. The message was clear. No escape, no safety. No matter where Jacob fled, the smiling man would follow. The encounter had marked him, cursed him to a lifetime of paranoia and dread. Days blurred into weeks. Jacob moved cities, changed his identity, hid from the world. Yet the smiling man appeared again and again, sometimes across crowded streets, sometimes in reflections, always smiling his impossibly wide, predatory smile. Finally, Jacob reached a breaking point. He traveled back to his old neighborhood, determined to confront the darkness that stalked him. Perhaps if he faced the nightmare head-on, the curse might end. The street was empty as he stood beneath the flickering streetlight where it had all begun. Night enveloped him, thick with silence and dread. Trembling, he called out, voice shaking but determined. "Show yourself!" Only silence responded. Yet as he turned to leave, Jacob froze. Two figures stood at the far end of the street. One utterly motionless, the other swaying in a familiar, erratic dance. Terror filled Jacob's veins once again as the smiling man slowly approached, grin wider than ever. "Why?" Jacob asked, voice barely a whisper. "What do you want?" The smiling man halted mere feet away, movements abruptly ceasing. The night seemed to hold its breath as the figure regarded him, smile never faltering. "What am I?" the smiling man echoed softly, voice smooth yet terrifying. "I'm whatever you fear most. I'm the uncertainty of shadows, the paranoia of solitude. I'm the darkness you imagine behind every smile." Jacob stepped backward, shaking his head desperately. "You're not real. You're just an urban legend, a story." The figure tilted his head slightly, smile stretching impossibly wider. "But aren't stories what haunt us most deeply? You called me here. Fear called me. Your dread gave me life." Jacob staggered backward, realizing the truth. The smiling man wasn't simply a creature or prankster. He was fear incarnate, born from anxiety and nurtured by paranoia. The more Jacob feared, the stronger he became. "I'll stop being afraid," Jacob whispered, voice trembling. "You'll fade away." The smiling man leaned closer, breath icy cold against Jacob's skin, whispering softly, terrifyingly clear. "No, Jacob, you'll never stop fearing me now. I'm part of you." Then, abruptly, the streetlights blinked out, plunging Jacob into suffocating darkness. He screamed, panic flooding every nerve. When the lights flickered back, the street was empty. Jacob stood alone, heart racing violently. But deep within, he knew the smiling man hadn't truly vanished. He lingered beneath every shadow, behind every unsettling thought, inside every anxious glance at strangers passing quietly in the night. The legend, Jacob realized, had become his own living nightmare, and as he walked away, the faintest whisper drifted through the darkness behind him. a gentle, horrifying reminder he could never escape. "Remember, Jacob, you're never alone." Jacob quickened his pace, knowing in his heart the smiling man was right. He'd never be alone again. That's it for today. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to comment, thumbs up, subscribe, and click the bell for notifications.